This is a tutorial video, a guide video that will help you complete Lab 3 Module 3, which centers around lighting in Unity. So I'm going to read the requirements and try to follow them, along as if I was a student. Requirements: start a new project, which of course is done in the Unity Hub. It's going to be named with your last name Lab 3. Example, if your last name is Smith, Smith Lab 3. And make sure to use the 3D built-in render pipe. So I'm going to do exactly that in my Unity Hub. I have already a bunch of projects, but I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to pretend that my name is Smith Lab 3. And before I actually, click Create Project, I'm going to make sure that I make a note of where I'm putting it. I'm going to put it in my Immersive Technologies 1. And I'm going to make sure that I'm using the 3D built-in render pipe and not the SRP or Universal 3D, this one. It should not be the first time you use it because you used it already for Lab 1 and 2. So I'm going to create the project. Wait till it opens, which on my computer doesn't take long, but on other computers might take a few minutes. Of course, remembering where it was saved, I'm going to also, from this module, download M3 textures. I think this link will link you right to it. It's a zip. I already downloaded it. I'm going to unzip it and add or copy to my assets. So it's already in my downloads folder. On Windows, it's not that different. Here it is, M3 textures. I'm going to, on Mac, of course, unzipping is just double clicking on a zip. On Windows, it'll require selecting it, right clicking and expand all, which I assume you know. I'm going to find it. Here it is, the unzipped folder, copy it, go to where I remember I saved this project that I just started. Here it is, Smith Lab 3. Open it up, and as we learned, to add to the assets, you paste into the assets folder. So now it should have two folders, Scene and M3 Textures. When I go back to Unity itself, let me bring it in. It's an empty project, empty sample scene, but I have a folder called M3 Textures. Next requirement. Give the main camera the following transform. It's going to be 0, 3, and -10 on the position. So main camera 0, 3, and it's already -10. Sorry, not 31, but 3. As far as angles, as far as rotation, it's going to have 15 degrees rotation on the X and nothing else changed. 15 degrees on X. Just make sure that the main camera is selected while you do that. In other words, I wanted to look down a little bit at my scene and save. So I put the camera a little higher, 3 meters in the air, but it's looking down a little bit, at the floor, as if it was, on a crane or a drone or something like that. Then, in the sample scene, create a cube, a plane, a sphere, and a capsule. And use these exact values for the transform of all 4 objects. So let me try to put these things. Now, it's not going to work. I'm going to have to switch back and forth. Let's create a plane, a cube, a sphere, and a capsule. This is something no different than what you've done. You could say that the first half of this lab is very similar to Lab 2, creating the objects, because in order to create lighting, we need to have objects to have the lights shine on. So I'm going to create. This is not the right project. This one. Right click, 3D, plane. The parameters for the plane are going to be 0, 0, 0 and 2, 2, 2. plane is going to be a little bigger. It's going to be twice as wide and twice as deep. The height doesn't really matter because a plane doesn't really have any height. Next, the cube. Right click, 3D object, cube. Right now it's like smack in the middle, but the parameters we're going to give it are going to be 0, 1, negative 1.5, 45 degrees rotated on the Y, and a scale of 2 to 2. So 0, 1, negative 1.5, 0, 1, so it's above, and negative 1.5, and its scale is going to be 2 by 2 by 2, which puts it more or less, on the plane in the center. Save. The next thing is going to be to create a sphere with these numbers, negative 2.5, 1, and 0.3. Right click, 3D object, sphere. Again, what the numbers are, negative 2.5, 1, and 0.3. Negative 2.5 and 0.3. And again, the scale is going to be 2 to 2, like the other objects. Twice as wide, twice as tall, twice as deep. Okay. Next, there's going to be a capsule. The capsule's parameter are going to be 2.5, 2, and 0.3. Notice how it's exactly like, this one's to the left, this one's to the right, and it has the same scale. So, capsule 2.5, 1, 0.3, and a scale of 2 by 2 by 2. No, its height is going to be 2, so that places it right above the floor. Its Y is going to be 2. So by the time I'm done, my game window should look something like this. Notice how I have my scene window and my game window one above each other. The default, of course, as we discussed, is to have it like this side by side, but I don't like it side by side, so I take the game window and I move it to be here so I can see my game and my scene at the same time. In any case, in the instructions, it says that your game window should look something like this. Let me see if my game window looks something like this. Yes, it does. Let me make sure the cube, is it big enough? Plane, cube, yeah, close enough. In your assets, create a My Materials folder, create a material for each one of the objects, name them sphere mat, a plane mat, cube mat, and so on. And for each one of them, give a normal and a texture. So the capsule mat. For when you create, don't forget, when you assign the normal, because you haven't told it it's going to be a normal, you might have a button that says fix now. If you don't see that button, then there's no need to fix. Let me do that really, really quick. Make sure. Oh, what I forgot for the cube is the 45-degree angle. That's why it looks different. That's more like it. Now it looks exactly like the screenshot. So in my assets, I like to zoom out to see everything, zoomed out. Right click, create folder. You can call it materials or my materials, I prefer. Double click to open that folder, right click, create material. Right here, it's going to be plane material. I'm going to assign it to the plane, and look at the requirements. It doesn't really say, let's make sure if it does. Each material needs to use one of the albedo textures in M3 textures, and the normal for that texture. It doesn't really tell you which one. I'm going to stick to the ones I used in my example, but you can switch them around because that's not really the point of this, of this exercise. So for the plane, I'm going to use the albedo that looks like, let me zoom in, like this ground, but also the normal map that looks like normal ground. And I do get the Fix Now button because it doesn't know that the normal should be used as a normal, so I'm fixing it. And then another material for the cube. And just to be consistent with what I used in the example, the cube looks to be using that brown thing. So cube, first of all, of course, I'll give the cube the material. If I hold Option or Alt on Windows, I can, look around and get closer to it. But the more important thing is that the cube material, as its albedo, will use this tiles thing. And its normal map will be the tiles normal, and again, Fix Now. Then the sphere mat will be assigned to the sphere. It will be given, let's see what I gave the sphere, like the whitish kind of like texture, which is not the default. The sphere mat, as its albedo, will get this wall texture. Good, and also the normal map, wall normal. If we get closer to it, you'll see that it's very far from the default. Looks very nice and textured. And for the capsule, create material, capsule map, assign it, of course, to the capsule. And for the capsule mat, I'm going to use the greenish albedo that looks like a leaf. Yep, that one, and of course also the normal map that goes along with it. And now, save of course, we're finally ready to mess with lighting. The next step, after we got our plane and our three objects, is to take care of the sky. So as it says in step 8, in step 9, we got as far as step 8. Select the main camera, and in its inspector, we're going to change clear flags to solid color and the background to black. We do it by, again, selecting the main camera, and in its inspector, we're changing clear flags from skybox to solid color, and it changes it to a solid color instead of sky, and we change the solid color to a solid black. And save. This way we're going to see our lighting better. The next part is to manipulate the three kinds of lights, which, there's separate tutorials on this module for each one of them. So I'll just guide you through the options, but you have to find the exact look to match the screenshots. So it says, well, right now, step 10, it should look like this, and it does. And now we're in stage 2. Change the parameters of the directional light until you get this look or as close as possible to it. Notice what's happening here. The direction of the directional light, which is like the sun, had to be changed so the shadows are facing us. Hint, that means that it's got to be like the sun is in front, so the shadows are behind. You're going to have to manipulate the rotation, the shadow type, the shadow strength, and the shadow resolution. I'm just going to play around with it, but not guide you exactly to the right parameters, because that's the whole point of this assignment, for you to find the right parameters to get to a look that's as close as possible to this with a directional light. I'm just going to show you, like, what could be done. If I'm on the directional light and I just drag the X around, and of course I'm going to change my shadows. And my Y and my intensity, and sorry, I'm changing the position. That's what, nothing changes. In directional light, there's, position doesn't matter. I'm talking about changing the rotation. So if I change the rotation of X, see how the shadows start falling in a certain direction? And if I change the rotation of Y, it starts falling in a certain direction. And if I change the intensity, it starts going up and down, maybe not too much. I can choose between no shadows. You, of course, need either hard or soft shadows, and then I can play with the strength. And what I need you to do is, again, play with the rotation, the intensity, the shadow type, and the shadow strength. Let's go back to the list. Rotation, shadow type, shadow strength, and shadow resolution, until you get to, notice how the shadows are not too strong. You can still see the floor. Then after you got to this look, save of course, disable the directional light just by unchecking the box in the inspector. I don't want you to delete it, just disable it. So directional light, right here, disabled. Then I want you to right-click, create a point light. And your aim with the point light is to get to this look. Going back here. With a point light, create a point light, you're going to need to manipulate the parameters until you get this look, or as close as possible to it. Remember, the directional light is off, so all we see is just the point light. I'm hinting that you'll need to mess with the position, the light range, the color, and the intensity. So I see that the light is red, so I think, it should be the first thing I change. So I'm going to click and change the light to red. It still doesn't look, the way I want it to. Maybe move it up a little bit. Maybe change the range. Maybe change the X or the Y or the intensity. Definitely this thing has no shadows, so I'm going to add maybe soft shadows. In any case, you need to manipulate all of those. I'm telling you right now that the rotation on point light doesn't matter much. It's mostly about the position, moving it behind, front, back, up, down, left, right, set the color right, sets the range until it looks right, and of course set the intensity to be not too much so it burns, not too little so you can't see it, and the end result that you're looking for should look something like this. So look for the shadows to be kind of close to the objects and kind of sharp, but not completely like, black. I can still, the shadows are still not full strength. After you've done that, you're going to disable the point light and create a spotlight until you get the spotlight to look like this. So again, I'm going to guide you more or less how to do that. Again, first of all, I'm going to disable the point light, right click, spotlight. And right now I see nothing. The reason I see nothing is because by default spotlights point down. So if I start bringing it up, I might start seeing something, but I'll have to increase my intensity by a lot and so on. Here's my hint. Use your Y to look above, and you're going like, oh, so it looks like it's above it. And what I really need, using the move tool, is to move the spotlight to be in front, because if you look at the screenshot, It looks like basically there's a spotlight here in front. It's very focused and it's shining on the front of the cube to create that nice, almost like heart-shaped. So once I'm in Unity, I can say, oh, you know what? That means I'm going to have to move the Z backwards. It's eye level, so its Y is going to be 1, just like this, and I start seeing something. Then I'm going to move, see how the X doesn't really do much until I make it, oh, okay. Now it's shining at that. If I look at it from the side, I can say, oh, it's too much. And it also needs to be moved a little more backwards. And now I start seeing, good stuff. If you pause the video, you might see like, the right numbers. And then of course the color, which is kind of like, magenta or something like that. And then you're going to play around with the intensity. I'm already pretty close. You can get your hints from what I'm doing right here. I'm going to work with the spot angle till I get the stuff right. I'm going to work with the intensity until I get this just right. And the idea is that you're going to end up with something that's as close. It's very shiny, and it's exactly shining on the like the front of the cube. The last step after you save is when you turn on all 3 lights, because this was just the spotlight. If you turn on all the lights, it should get a look that's as close as possible. I'm not expecting 100% close, but pretty close to this. So when I turn on my directional light and my point light and my spotlight are still on, it should get more or less this look, which matches more or less the look that you get in this screenshot on step 16. Once you do, make sure you save everything, zip the project, of course, the whole folder, just like you've done with other labs, and upload and submit it to the submission box by the due date.